Hello, everybody. I am Jarrett Ross, the Genie Vlogger, and welcome to another Friday live stream. Hope everyone is doing well today. See lots of people in the chat, and hopefully we'll get a lot more people coming in a bit. As usual, we'll just kind of be chatting about stuff, answering questions, and all of that fun stuff. So I'll go ahead and start doing the hellos as we get more people coming in. And as usual, one of our first is always Anna Tommaso coming in from Rochester, New York. Hey, Anna. Good to have you as always. Then we have Adam Buros. Good evening from Swindon, England. Good evening, Adam. Thank you for joining. And we also have got Alexandra from Koblenz, Germany. Hello. And Julia Joyce from North Baddesley, England. Yeah, I hope everyone's okay. I'm doing okay. Hope you are too. And then Nick Brokema, Goedenavond van Groningen. Alles goed? Ja, heel goed voor mij. Ik hoop dat alles goed met jou ook. Gerd, Gerd coming in from Berlin. I don't know what it was. My brain stopped for a second. Thanks for joining, Gerd. Not sure if I've seen you in here before. Maybe I feel like maybe I have, but I don't know. Emilis, hi from Scotland. Whoop, I match his son, mother, and grandma who match my grandfather. All of the surnames Shatner and Trees, I think we're related via his German side, have a theory but no proof. Well, good luck. Hopefully you can figure it out. I mean, obviously, if it is a connection, it's through his paternal line, assuming you're talking about William Shatner. So Matt Fass, hello from Sweden. Hello, Matt. Thank you for joining. Our Scandinavian representation, one of them. Usually I feel like Stig is the one that's the first to jump in, but you're starting to take Stig's place. Marcy Trost, I made it to Alive finally. Hello from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Looking forward to rubbing elbows in person at the IAJGS conference in Fort Wayne, Indiana later this summer. Awesome to have you, Marcy. Glad you were able to make it. And I look forward to meeting you at the IAJGS conference, which for anyone who's not familiar, IAJGS is the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies. I'm on the board of directors for that. We have a conference coming up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I don't know if you all can hear my dog scratching like crazy at the carpet. Jack, what are you doing? But yeah, if you hear that, throw some dog emojis in there. He's just going crazy at it. It's a good thing it's just a cheap throwaway little thing for my computer chair to sit on. But yeah, hopefully anyone that is available to come to this conference, which will be in August, definitely check it out, especially if you do Jewish genealogy and you're interested in that. But I guess I'll be seeing you there, Marcy. Albuquerque Bobcat, hello from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Well, hello, thanks for joining. And then we've got Sandy Person, turquoise waving speech. Well, whatever that is. One of those emotes. Or emojis, I guess. Callum Tate, hello, Callum. Thanks for joining. We have Jose Lopez, 94. You made it. Yes, you did. Geronimo, hello from Pringles, Argentina. Yes, like the chips. Very cool. I didn't know there was a Pringles, Argentina. That's so cool. And Emilis, sorry for just throwing that out. LOL, sorry. Oh, no worries at all. That's what we do here. We talk about what we've been researching and all of that fun stuff. Brian Lewis, hi from North Carolina. Hello, Brian. Thank you for joining. And Nicole Ann, greetings from the land of entrapment or enchantment, whichever. LOL. Very cool. Thanks for joining. And Antonio Del Elche. Hello, Antonio. Thanks for joining. I know I always butcher your last name. I'm terrible with Italian pronunciations, but always wonderful to have you. And Neek, I hope someone find her half-brother with DNA research this week. So I totally read that wrong. I helped someone find her half-brother with DNA research this week, so my week has been good. That's awesome. Always great when you make a big solve, especially in something where it's like connecting people with really close relatives like a half-brother. And then my cousin, Catherine Michael, see you in August. Wonderful to hear you're coming going to come to the conference. I know it's not easy right now for people traveling internationally. Jose Lopez, since my half-brother and I don't share the same dad but have the same mom, I believe my maternal first cousins are his half first cousins, I'm not mistaken. No, if you and your half sibling share a mom, then whatever first cousins you have are the same first cousins to that half sibling. It's not like they'd be a half first cousin. A half first cousin would be where your kids and your half siblings' kids, they're half first cousins because their parents aren't siblings, or their aunt and uncle isn't a full sibling to their parent. They're a half sibling. Hopefully that makes sense. PZ, hi GV. I don't know why that just so weird. PZ, hi GV. Apparently Ancestry are rolling out new Jewish regions, including Eastern Sephardic. Yeah, I've heard about this. I'm not sure if I've I'm not sure if I've seen it rolled out yet in my profiles. Granted, I don't check the admixtures much. I only check the admixtures because it's such an important thing to people that watch a lot of these videos. And so, it does have some genealogical usefulness too. But yeah, still, it'll be interesting to see what it is, because I think they're going to be rolling out other regions too. But Ancestry also actually releases white papers with what they release, so we'll actually be able to see what that says and get kind of an idea of how they're coming up with it. So that'll be interesting to see. Your Italian is good in this case. Oh, that's awesome. Good, good. I'm always worried. I'm always worried with that. Um, oh, got terminology wrong. Oh, no worries, no worries. Yeah. Feel like, no one's perfect. I certainly am not. All right. Well, at this point, I think good time to mention, as I always do, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in chat. Of course, if you want to guarantee your question is answered, you can, there we go, do a super sticker, super chat. I forgot exactly which one. I guess it's super chat. That makes sense. That you can put a question with that. Of course, if you do a super sticker, I'll look for whatever you might say later on. So I guarantee anyone that does those, I answer those questions. And then, of course, if you really appreciate just what I do here on these streams and you want to help support it, I greatly appreciate any of the donations. They literally help support this channel and make it so that I can keep doing live streams just like this. But since I haven't seen anything pop up just yet, I figured I'd kind of talk a little bit about some of what I've been doing, which is something I talked about not too long ago as well, I think. And that was researching into my Tulchin ancestry, which Tulchin is a town in Ukraine. And this is on my dad's side of the family. And basically, I've just been going through a bunch of the records that recently were indexed and put into the Jewish Gen search database, largely by the Ukraine SIG. Ukraine SIG meaning Ukraine Special Interest Group, which is part of Jewish Gen, so the interest group of Ukraine within Jewish Gen. Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of that sort of research and going through those records and building up the families and doing something that I hadn't done yet that I'd thought about doing in the past, but I ended up not doing it just because there were so few records available. And that was one name study record, or one name study research in the town. So basically, my family, the Waxman family, which went by Waxer when they were in Tulchin, looking at every single person that has the Waxer name, and then possibly even, similar variations, maybe even Waxman, because there were people with that name in the town, and then seeing, can we connect them all? So I do see we've got some stuff. Gazillion, hi from Portugal. And Callum, and hi Gazillion, hola, hola Pasual. Wish I was able to go, but I think recordings will be posted on YouTube. For IAJGS, I don't know. I don't remember what the plan is this year. I know there's always a push for us to have some sort of recordings. Yeah. Emily, sorry I have to go. Hope to see you next live. Well, glad you were able to make a bit of it, but you can always come back and watch the recording. Look at my comment above. The only comment I see above, I see this, and then hello. Did everything? Am I missing something? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Okay, and then I see a hello from Rebel with the Shih Tzu. Hello from Florida. Glad to have caught a live. Well, glad that you're able to catch a live here. And funny enough, I don't know if we get a ton of people from Florida. Maybe we do. I don't know. And Vince Hernley, hello from Indy. Well, hello, Vince. Funny enough, we were just talking about Fort Wayne, Indiana. Although I'm guessing Indy as in like Indianapolis, Indiana, but I could be wrong. Oh, there's one above Gazillion. Oh, it didn't come through. All right, let me see. Yeah, huh. I don't see it, Callum. I'm checking. I'm even checking in my YouTube. Like, unless you posted under a different name, doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, post again if it's an important comment. And then we got Sean from Ireland. Good to have you, Sean. And then Vince, that is correct. Indianapolis, first time live. Well, glad that you were able to make it for your first one. So sharing my screen. Let's try to make this as compact as possible. There we go. All right. So these are my great grandparents. Many of you that have watched a lot of my videos may recognize them because I honestly talk about them a lot, especially like with my great grandfather Harry. I honestly think I get a lot of my looks from him. Like when I was about that age that he is in that photograph, I looked fairly similar to that. So I've been building out this part of the family. Like before, I didn't have much to build out. Like I could identify my great grandfather. So obviously, we're talking about my great grandmother's side. And then also this side, the Reimer side. So all of them came from Tulchin, Ukraine, which is in an area known as Vinnytsia. So Vinnytsia Oblast. Some people may know Vinnytsia City. So similar to Kiev, there's an oblast within, or there's an oblast where that city is within. I think that's right. Unless maybe I'm mixing up gubernias. I'm not the best with remembering that. Should be. But so you can see where Tulchin is right here. So right north of Moldova, kind of getting into the Galicianer sort of areas of Ukraine. So the areas of the historic kingdom of Galicia. So it's kind of like, basically it's like right here-ish and east up into Poland. So yeah. My mouse is flying all over the place. Did I? No, I didn't. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Weird. All right. So I've been going through a lot of the records that are in Jewish Gen to kind of do this. And yesterday I was focusing on my Vaxxer side. So I was able to identify a likely sister of my third great grandfather and then a child of hers. And I actually can't remember if I'd started to build the Meninger side, but I was able to find a lot of births and deaths of my second great grandfather's siblings. And it seemed, as far as I could tell, there's only this one sister where I could find a marriage and her actually, having a family. Now, a lot of them I could find died young. So I found death records for Abram, Shloma, Cassia, Sruel, which would be Israel, Frida, Udal. But then for Fega, Shmuel, and Isaac, all three of them, Malka, Fega, Shmuel, and Isaac, they all have families, or I guess I actually don't, I shouldn't say it that way. Fega and Shmuel, we can't find death records for, so presumably they would have made it to adulthood, but I can't find any records of them marrying or kids or anything like that. I was able to find a bunch from Malka, still working on that. So this is just this is what I've been working on lately. Let's see, Gazillion, did you found you had ancestors from modern day Ukraine after or before 2022 Russian invasion? Before. And in fact, I started my YouTube channel in 2017, and one of my first videos was talking about the research in Ukraine, because a lot of my family lines on both my mom's side and my dad's side trace to Ukraine. So obviously this family of mine tracing to Tulchin, Ukraine, another family on my dad's side tracing to Sokyeriani, which is really, historically, they considered themselves Romanian Jews when they came to the U.S., which was in the 1890s. So, they came at a time well before, like, where Sokyoriani is. It's one of those towns where the borders was jumping all over the place for it. So right now I'm pulling up a couple of things. But then that's my dad's side. And then on my mom's side, I have multiple towns, a lot of Kiev ancestry, as well as ancestry in Odessa, and then what am I missing? There's something else. I don't know. I need to pull it up. I'm trying to do a lot of stuff at once. So I'm pulling up my channel to look at my oldest videos. Which, by the way, it's so funny looking at my oldest videos and just wow. Okay, so yeah, of these, in this one I talk about that's my family in Sokyoriani. So here I'm gonna pull up Sokyoriani. So it's in the Chernivtsi Oblast. So there's Sokyoriani. So here you see that line, that's Moldova. So it's literally right on the border of Moldova and Ukraine. Tulchin is over here. And then Sokyoriani's here. And then I have a ton of ancestry in Kiev and a bunch of ancestry in Odessa. So on my mom's side, my family that was part of the Alliance Colony, the first Jewish agricultural communities in the United States, or the first successful ones, which were in New Jersey. Those sides of my family come from both Odessa and Kiev, mostly Kiev. And then some other lines of my family from my mom's side, like my Kazanovich line, which is one that I've talked about a lot in presentations because it was one of the first big DNA breakthroughs I really had, where it was the DNA that helped break through things before the paper trail. And that family was from Kiev, and specifically they're from Vassal Kiev, which we then figured out was then actually they'd gone from Vassal Kiev right here. So here's Vassal Kiev. But they'd gone, I think it was Vassal Kiev. They'd come from Fastov first, which is like another one of the towns somewhere outside here. Somewhere. Here it is, Fastiv. That's it. So Fastiv and Vassal Kiev. So very specific, very specific. So this video is the Sokyoriani. Yeah, I'm trying to remember which ones there are, but I mean all of these 2017, and I can't find the one that I'm thinking of. This one talks about one of the family lines that came from Kiev. Here's a bunch of stuff about Alliance, so that's Kiev and Odessa side and all of that, obviously, but yeah. So let's go back here. All right, maybe this is what you were trying to talk about, Callum. There's a family history seminar starting in a few hours in Singapore. Interesting. Carmigel, hi from Nebraska. Didn't see the notification. Oh, wow. Yeah, I've been hearing from a lot of people that notifications they've had turned on for various channels on YouTube, they aren't getting notifications. They go back in and they have to turn it back on. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that. I think I've experienced that like a couple of times, but hopefully that's not what happened to you. Some weird glitch or something. Callum Tate, it's ran by the Genealogy Society Singapore in collaboration with Family Search, Chinese Ancestry Research Facebook group, and My China Roots. That's cool. So I guess it's talking a lot about Chinese ancestry and I guess probably a larger Asian ancestry, but I guess Singapore is largely people with Chinese ancestry, if I remember correctly. Although I don't know, maybe I'm swayed by what was that movie? Crazy Rich Asians. That was in Singapore, I think, wasn't it? I don't know. Okay, Weeping Scorpion. Hello, everyone. Hello, Weeping Scorpion, our Faroe Islands representation. And Douglas Huseman, my ex-wife, is from Odessa, Ukraine. Okay, interesting. Yeah, Odessa's it's been kind of a difficult place to research compared to a lot of the other areas of Ukraine. And Jose, with my paternal great grandfather on my grandfather's side, having a first name of Italian origin, could probably identify as Italian too, since I was born in Chicago. I don't know about that necessarily. I mean, if it was a last name or something, but a first name, I mean, does that mean that if you name your kid just any sort of name, they can identify as that culture? I don't know. Neat question. I got my Y37 on family tree DNA. Haplogroup is IF2642. I got 0 matches at 37 markers. Wow, 0. 425 and 89 at 12. Am I correct that I probably won't get much out of an upgrade to Big Y? Yeah, that's you wouldn't get much out of it, most especially in terms of genealogical usefulness of it. But that is also assuming that you don't take that DNA and put it onto Y-full, which I believe I don't know how difficult that is. But like I think you have to do a Big Y to get on Y-full properly. Because there may be matches in Y-full that did like a whole genome sequence test, and that's how they got their Y DNA sequenced. But beyond that, yeah, there's really not much you're gonna get. The next best thing, honestly, would really just be the fact that you're prepared if you do get a better match. But 0 matches at 37 markers, oof, that's tough. That's tough. Like for anyone that's kind of into some of the reaction world stuff, you probably know what I'm referencing there. But honestly, that's the best way to say it. That's tough. If you are limited on budget and things, and you want to kind of wait it out until you do get a good match to upgrade to the Big Y, you're not going to be missing much. Doing the Big Y does give you more information, but with so few matches at that distance, yeah, it's going to be very, very minimal. Very minimal. Callum Tate, yes, mostly Chinese ancestry. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, one of my second half cousins helped produce Crazy Rich Asians, by the way. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Actually, funny enough, that's like one of my dad's favorite movies. And I forgot how long it was, but he like kept trying to get me to watch it for the longest time, and I was just like, I don't know, because I'd seen Aquafina's, I think one of her stand-up specials or something. I think doesn't she do stand-up? Like I think that's what I saw, but I saw something with her. I think it was stand-up, and I was basically like, I don't know, I'm not that into it, just not for me, sort of thing. So I figured, but then I saw the movie and I was like, okay, that's a really good movie. Funny, fun, and then very cool ending. Because I actually looked up like what it all meant, like that mahjong scene, and that was like, oh, wow, that's cool. That's cool. Nick, I'm thinking about using my money to test a distant branch of the family with a different last name to confirm the relation. That probably would be a better use of your money, considering the markers or the matches that you have. Neek Brokama. Haplogroup was the same as my Ancestry DNA upload to FTDNA. Oh, interesting. Vince Hurley, question on my mom's side of the family. Many of my DNA matches that would normally be classified as third or fourth cousins end up being fifth or sixth once I trace the actual relationships. Is this due to endogamy? No, what it really just comes down to is that these websites, their predicted relationships are oversimplified. And it's one of the things that I wish people knew better, to like not read those so specifically, because when you look at how much overlap there is for these more distant relatives, you realize that, yeah, a lot of these ones that they're just calling third or fourth cousins or whatever, it's really could be as close as a second cousin to as distant as a fifth cousin, but they just go with kind of like, well, what's closest to the average, I think. I mean, it'll vary with each site. But this is looking at this, the shared centimorgan project, which you can find on DNA Painter. I'm going to throw that in chat for anyone that wants to be able to access that easily. And so, looking at third or fourth cousins, third cousin, we have an average of 73 centimorgans, a range of sharing no DNA to up to 234 centimorgans. But let's say, okay, we've got a bunch of submissions, not even the majority, but a large amount that are between 101 centimorgans and 150 centimorgans. We've got a lot of them. So let's put in 125. So let's say you're sharing 125 centimorgans with someone, right? Look at all of the possibilities of relationships that you might have. And that's the higher end. Remember, we're looking at 121, which is, higher than the average. So now let's look at something that's lower than the average. So there's still a ton here, but let's say here, okay, the highest amount, the largest amount, which I think, where is it? They have the median somewhere. Yeah, standard deviation, 43 centimorgans. Yeah, okay, mean value of 73 centimorgans. Okay, so the mean is 73. There we go. It's like, why was it not clicking? So now we do 73. My computer's going slow, but then you can see, look at how, how that widens up, and you have so much more availability there. So the thing that I always tell everyone is, when you look at your DNA matches, completely ignore their relationship projection. Just go straight to the shared centimorgan project and analyze the matches that way, because you can get a much better idea of what you're truly dealing with. Because with DNA recombination, it is random, it's all over the place, and that's why there's these massive ranges. So, for someone who's a fifth cousin, here the mean value is 25 centimorgans. So let's just say 40. We have a 40 centimorgan match, right? Well, 40 centimorgan match could be as distant as an eighth cousin, and it's well within the range of a lot of different things, and it could even be as close as a third cousin or a second cousin once removed. So that's really why those relationship projections are just not necessarily not reliable, but not nuanced enough to understand. So that's why it makes sense that, they're going to classify stuff as third or fourth cousins, but then you're going to look it up and it's like, oh, well, it's more distant than that. And, especially third or fourth cousin, it's just an average distance. So it doesn't take into account, the large amount of removed relatives that everybody has. Okay. Oh, Rob, evening. Goedenavond. Even though they are consistently a more distant relationship than the amount of shared centimorgans would suggest. Now, you did mention before, is this due to endogamy? And one thing I will say is that what I have noticed in endogamous populations is that the stronger the endogamy is, the more you will see the amount of DNA shared on the higher end of things for distant relations. And the more intense the endogamy is, the higher that amount goes. Because what endogamy is I'm sure some people are like, wait, what is endogamy? Endogamy is when you have a population group that largely only has children with others from that same population group for many, 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 many generations. So this includes both what's known as pedigree collapse, which some people just say cousins marrying cousins. So basically you have a pair of first cousins, they marry and have a kid. Well, that kid is a second cousin to himself. And thus, if you look at all the grandparents, well, he's actually only going to have, he's only going to have, or not grandparents, great grandparents. He's only going to have 3 sets of great grandparents instead of 4 sets. And so it breaks down. But then also there's double cousins where you're not necessarily like pedigree collapse, but you have it where you're related to certain people in multiple ways. So the perfect example of that is double first cousins. Double first cousins meaning that you have a couple and they have a kid, And from that couple, the wife has a sister, the husband has a brother. The brother of the husband marries the sister of the wife. And so then they have their own kid. And well, the kids of the first couple and the second couple are first cousins in two ways, once through their moms and once through their dads. So this is happening tons and tons of times over in many, many ways. So what it means is that people from endogamous populations will often be related to others from that same population group many more times than a typical non-endogamous population. So like Pacific Islanders have some of the most hardcore endogamy. French Canadians and Jews are usually the ones that people point to as kind of like the typical endogamy that you run into, I guess. I guess maybe typical is not the best word because it's typical for me because I do a lot of Jewish research. But then on top of that, it's, you have varying levels of things. So like between like the Jewish population and Pacific Islander populations, the Creoles and Cajun populations have really intense endogamy. Part of that just coming from a higher degree of pedigree collapse in a shorter amount of generations. So when you do a family tree for Cajun and Creole families, once you get back a few hundred years, you start to find all of the same ancestors. And they're also coming out of a population that in itself was endogamous, the Akkadian population. So with all of that said, yes, it could possibly be that, if you're noticing matches constantly being on the higher end of things, where, oh yeah, I have a sixth cousin, but, and the paper trail proves it, but, I share, 50 centimorgans or 60 or whatever, that's something I actually talked about in one of my talks, is that's what I found over and over when I find matches in my match list that I know how they're related. I can see it through the paper trail, and then I look at the predicted relationship distance versus what the actual distance is, and it's always on the higher end. People that are averaged out third cousins usually end up being fourth cousins or fifth cousins. Not always, obviously, it can vary. So yeah. Oof. Allergies aren't so intense right now, but it still comes back every once in a while. All right. Let's see. Louise CA. I live in deep rural Brazil, and I ran into a wall into my purely paternal line. So many documents are missing. Any advice on what I could do, or not much I can do? I have pretty much full European ancestry. Well, depending on how far back that purely paternal line runs into a brick wall, doing different types of DNA testing could help. So if that brick wall on your paternal line is like your great-grandfather or maybe your second great-grandfather, then doing a typical autosomal DNA test, so something like an Ancestry DNA test or a MyHeritage DNA test, that's going to be a test that could help you out. So that's kind of like a lot of the stuff I'm talking about here with this chart, these shared centimorgans and the amount that they're sharing. That's all based on what's known as autosomal DNA testing. So autosomes being the first 22 pairs of chromosomes out of your 23 pairs of chromosomes. The other type of DNA test you could take is a Y chromosome DNA test, because purely paternal line, that is where you inherit your Y chromosome. So I'm assuming if you're a male, you'd be able to do it. If you're not a male, if you have any siblings or uncles or your dad or anything like that, basically someone who has the Y chromosome to test, and you do that, and that could help you figure things out. But there's obviously no guarantee, but that is a great way. The other thing is to just kind of look further into what records might be available and how to access them. So a great way to do that would be through the Family Search Wiki. So if we do Family Search Wiki Brazil, so I'm just doing a Google search. So that's what comes up. And here we go, the wiki. So not much on this wiki, but does lead us to other stuff. Oh, these are websites. Never mind. Okay, so here's the main wiki. So depending on where you might be researching, you'll want to find wherever that may be on here and kind of, maybe there's more information there. So let's say maybe your ancestry is in Rio, that your paternal line. Well, this is going to give you more information on Rio, and so here you have details on online digital records for civil registrations, microfilm copies of civil registrations and family search catalog, and then how to write to them. And so the wiki's a guide to help you. I'm going to make this larger because I'm realizing I'm on the internet and people might not be able to read this as well as I can see it. But so these wikis can be super, super helpful when it comes to that. Now, obviously, depending on when that brick wall is, if that brick wall is, in the early 1800s or something like that, or the late 1700s, you're probably going to have a much more difficult time, because if you look through a lot of what the records, or a lot of the records that are available, it kind of gets much more difficult at that point. So you can even see there's this Brazil online genealogy records. So we'll go here. And then you can see a register of the Dutch in Brazil. So that's I'll be able to find family of mine in here. Let's see, actually, because my family was in that community in Recife. I have to log in. Hold on 1 second. Un momento, por favor. De Register der Hollanders in Brazili, overgenomen door C.J. Vash. So Pernambuco, so Recife. And I think this might be referencing a lot of the records in the Amsterdam archives. Yeah, Archive der Gemeente Amsterdam. So these are in Portuguese. Portuguese. What's this? So yeah, I don't know if that's going to help you out. Let's okay. So yeah, I'll close this out. Just jumping in there for fun. So yeah, so lots of records possibly available, but if you notice, most of it is going to be late 1700s, maybe. I mean, it does say mid 1700s, early stuff too, but most of it I feel like is 1800s and on, especially the stuff that's the most robust for the most part, not everything, but it'll depend on where you're looking too. It's all going to depend on that. Okay. My computer is not liking how much stuff I've got running. I do not want it to freeze. I don't want it to freeze. All right. I'm gonna jump forward a bit. Okay, yeah, I'm not too far behind. Let's go over here. Ryan Thompson, question. When looking at Ancestry DNA results, if somebody gets 3% or so of whatever region, does that mean definitively that there was an ancestor somewhere in the family tree from that region? So no, that does not mean definitively that you have an ancestor in the family tree from that region. There's a few possibilities going on, and you have to really analyze that 3% compared to everything else you're getting, and then compared whatever information might be available from that testing company in terms of their white paper. So basically what it is just analyzing as in-depth as possible. So if you get a 3% reading of something, so let's say We'll go through a few different possibilities because they'll all vary too. So, like, let's say that you are, name like Ryan Thompson. Let's say that you're, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, largely for your family tree, as far as you know, and then you get a 3% reading of Jewish. Well, Jewish is going to stand out very well against someone with white Anglo-Saxon Protestant ancestry because they're going to have a largely Northwestern European ancestry, and there's not a lot of overlap between the DNA of someone with, or of Jewish ancestry and Northwestern European. So that 3% stands out greatly, and so there's a higher confidence that it could mean an actual Jewish ancestor in your ancestry if you look at the expected 3% amount, basically meaning 3% coming from one most recent ancestor. So when we look at how much we inherit from our ancestors, 50% from parents, 25% from grandparents, 12.5 from greats, 6.25 from second greats, 3 point whatever from third greats. So there we go. So that's about what we're looking at. Maybe a third great grandparent, but it could be a second great grandparent because recombination, the amount of DNA you inherit can be all over the place. So it could be a second great, could be a fourth great, but about a third great grandparent. But now let's change that. Let's say instead of having white Anglo-Saxon Protestant ancestry, you are actually coming from a largely Iberian ancestry. Or let's say not even that. Let's say your dad is Portuguese. Well, I guess with a name like Ryan Thompson, maybe not so, but like your mom's Portuguese. There you go. Straight from Portugal, came from Portugal with her family in the 1950s, Portuguese. And then you're getting this 3% reading of Jewish. Well, while that may represent actual Jewish ancestors in your ancestry, we also know that part of that has to do with the fact that a lot of Jews assimilated in a sense, not under their own fruition necessarily, but assimilated into the Iberian populations of Portugal and Spain because of the forced assimilation before the Inquisitions and during and after, obviously. Again, yeah. So basically, all the way back to like the 1300s, Jews were being forced throughout Iberia, during the Reconquista to be not Jewish. So like 1391, huge year for tons of pogroms all throughout areas of, I don't really want to say Spain, but honestly, kind of was Spain. But I guess, what was it then? Castile and Aragon. So massacre of 1391, very, very big deal. And a lot of Jews were converting then, forced to convert. So basically we know through that, okay, while you may actually have Jewish ancestors there, it's unlikely that we're really getting this 3% from a recent ancestor, like a third or fourth great grandparent. Instead, it's more of a population commonality because in the 1400s and 1300s and 1500s and at least that, so for 200 300 years you had a lot of Jewish people assimilating into the cultures of Iberia, and then you have it where now present day anyone who has Spanish or Portuguese ancestry very likely is going to get small readings of Jewish because they all have some Jews in their distant ancestry. So that's two things. Now let's look at a whole different possibility. Now let's say that you have, or let's go back to the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant one. So let's say that's what but you look at your family tree, and as far as all of your family should be living in England and Scotland and Ireland, and then you get a 3% reading of Denmark. Well, with that sort of a reading, we know that the Northwestern populations had a lot of population flow amongst them. And the Northwestern European populations don't just include the British Isles, but also the Scandinavian countries and even a bit of France and Denmark or not just Denmark, but the Netherlands and Belgium and kind of a little bit of Germany too. And so with that, it's not uncommon to get these 3% of other countries within that Northwestern European group, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have ancestors that came from there. So what it all really boils down to is that the way you should look at this more than anything is that when you get a 3% reading, what that reading is telling you is that when they look at your DNA, of the DNA they've analyzed, because it's only a small part of your entire genome, of the DNA they've analyzed, 3% of it correlates to a present day population that they've defined as whatever that is. So, if it's the Jewish population group that they've defined, then they have a group of people where, as far as they know, their ancestry is largely Jewish. They try to do Ashkenazi Jewish and Sephardi Jewish and all of that. It's starting to get a bit better, but that stuff's more difficult. But it's, either way, just, they defining that group as Jewish. But as they do more and more and more, they might realize, oh, we were defining this amount of DNA as Jewish, but when we actually look at it, it doesn't really seem to be a Jewish reading. This seems to be much more of a Levant reading or something like different that is common within the Jewish families. So it's like they're constantly updating things, constantly trying to get it where it's much more nuanced. And so you get all sorts of stuff. And yeah, hopefully all of that makes sense. I feel like I just went on a huge rambling whatever. So yeah. All right. Okay, let's okay. I see a lot of comments dealing with what I was saying earlier. So yeah. All right, here we go. Here's a question. With mitochondrial DNA, I have 30 exact matches with no mutations. 5 of them are in my region of interest with no autosomal matches. Should I focus on those matches? I mean, the thing is with, mitochondrial DNA, when you focus on the matches, it's a little easier because, specifically you just focus on everybody's maternal line. You don't have to worry about building their entire tree like you do with an autosomal DNA match, because with autosomal DNA, you're matching them from it could be any line in your tree and it could be any line in their tree. But when you're doing mitochondrial DNA, it's only your mother's line and their mother's line, the matrilineal lines. So it's hard to really say. What I would suggest is going into the new Discover tab for the mitochondrial DNA stuff, the stuff they've come out with because of the Million Mito project, and look at the matches timeline. I think is what it's called or whatever, or look at your matches there. But basically, it tries to help break things down better. But it'll also give you an idea of, based on their opinion, which that one really does help. Basically see what do they think the most recent common ancestor is for these 30 matches, because you could have 30 exact matches with no mutations on your mitochondrial DNA, and your most recent common ancestor, that as far as they could determine, lived somewhere between the year 200 to the year 600. So that would mean that at best your most recent ancestor lived 1400 years ago. Not well within the genealogical time window, unless you both happen to come from a matrilineal line of royalty. Yeah. Gazillion PT, isn't Genera Brazilian? Yes, I believe Genera is Brazilian. For those who don't know, Genera is a DNA testing company based out of Brazil. So one I've discussed a bit on this channel before. So if you're in Brazil and you want to do DNA testing, as far as I understand, they're pretty decent. I know I see a lot of people in GEDmatch that have uploaded from Genera. Okay. I got my grandfather's half-niece on his father's side to test to try and identify any matches on his father's side. I just got her Ancestry DNA results back a few days ago and no shared matches. Oh, that's painful. Sorry to hear that. Emmett Harks, how do I trace back my family on Ancestry? I mean, you just start with what you know and then start searching. So, start out with, what are your parents' names? When were they born? Where were they born? What are your grandparents' names? When were they born? Where were they born? If they've died, when did they die? Where did they die? Who were their siblings? Who were their parents? And then, you'll start just kind of building away. and then, start looking up records. So starting, assuming you're in the US, start looking up US Census records. If you know when your grandparents were born, all you need is an ancestor who was born before 1950. You should be able to find them in the 1950 census, and then hopefully you can take it further from there. So yeah. And then in terms of, I see you ask, how do I find my royal roots? You just keep building your tree, and if you have royal roots, you'll run into it. A lot of people kind of go into it thinking first of that. And the only real tricks to that is just as you're building your families, the family lines that you'd want to focus on are usually the ones that are coming from European countries. If you have a mix of stuff, because through European countries, you've got a better chance of being able to find that than, especially any countries that you can trace through easily. But yeah, not a straightforward answer, unfortunately. Gina Galadriel. I don't know if I've ever tried to pronounce your last name before, but yay, made it late, but made it to alive again. Yep, you made it to alive. Just been going for just under an hour, so yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I'm not sure how much longer I'll go. I'm sure it'll be a bit. But yeah. How can you look white and have J2? Because I do. I mean, it's history, a lot of the things that people say that, try to pinpoint populations and things like that and say, only this group has this haplogroup. Nonsense. If you know history, if you do genealogy, you do all that kind of stuff, it's very apparent how mixed of a world we are, and especially knowing population groups like J2. Of course, tons of people that look white that are in J2. Tons of them. Yeah, Carmen Gal, if you have English ancestry, chances are high that you're descended from John of Gaunt. And in all honesty, pretty much everyone likely, anyone that has European ancestry has some sort of royalty in their ancestry. It's just a matter of how far back is your closest royalty. But yeah, especially from a population genetic standpoint, especially from like a mathematical standpoint, along with that, I think it's like anyone with European ancestry, if you go back 1,000 years, anyone that was in Europe that had a surviving line until today, they will be your ancestor in some way. Yeah. Perfect way to say it, Gina. Perfect way. I don't know Lord of the Rings, so Galadriel. I'm not a Lord of the Rings person. Not a Lord of the Rings person. So, all right, Louise CA. Going back to the brick wall I talked about, I've done a DNA test and uploaded to my heritage. How would I go about relating the matches to these ancestors late 1800s? That's you're basically asking an advanced DNA, or not advanced, but you're asking, how to do genetic genealogy in a sense. So, you want to look at your DNA matches and look at their family trees. If they don't have family trees, build their family trees, and you want to look for commonalities amongst their tree to your tree. And then from there's more advanced techniques you can use to pinpoint things further. So like shared matches is a big one. So if you're looking for people on your paternal side, then, if you have cousins that are paternal cousins, then whatever shared ancestors you have with them, they're going to be through that same paternal side. And so the more distant of a paternal ancestor it is, so let's say you have a third cousin where that's through your purely paternal side. So you go up to your father's sibling and their, great grandson or whatever, something like that. Well, that match, whatever shared matches you have are most likely going to come from that shared ancestry line you have. Now there's there's other difficulties that could make it harder to do, like that whole endogamy thing we were talking about. So if you come from an endogamous population, that can throw things off, because what endogamous populations one of the difficulties they have in DNA testing is that they're related to everyone else within that same population group, even if at a slightly distant amount, but still close enough to have come up as a shared match. So when you look at shared matches, it becomes a more difficult thing because, like, I look at shared matches for my family and I'll see people on my dad's side who are also matching cousins from my mom's side. But that's just because we're all related in this big tangle web, spider web connection of everything. So I would suggest if you really want to get into the nitty gritty about learning about that, I'd say, start looking up more tutorial videos or, blogs or, learning more about the, how to do just genetic genealogy and analyzing DNA matches. But it can be really useful. Mike L. I took a Y-DNA test a while back. It comes listed as RCTS 2457.2. I was wondering if there's any information on this haplogroup. Well, we can always just do a quick Google search of it. So RCTS 2457.2. So I usually like to go to the Y-full tree. And very interesting. One thing I can tell you is that a very low subclade, only one person in this subclade on Y-full, but that subclade is part of, I guess there's another subclade that's a brother link to it, but that's a really far back haplogroup for the subclade to be coming from. And then these wow. So yeah, interesting. So it looks like this would be one that, at least on Y-full. So we have that there, 2457.2. So we can go back a little further. RDF 13. So there are some somewhat well-defined haplogroups in here within the 1,000-year window, but it seems largely, yeah, interesting. But it's very European, very Northwestern European, obviously. See a lot of the English, Irish, got a Spanish there, Irish, New Zealand, Ireland, USA, Ireland. So yeah, not a ton of info necessarily, but yeah. All right, let's see what questions. Okay, we'll go to Neeks. Something strange with the HG, the haplogroup mentioned before. My own ancestry transfer and FTDNA Y37 both gave IF2642 on family tree DNA, but my father's MyHeritage transfer to FTDNA gave IBY453, a more recent haplogroup. All right, well, we want to first see, let's see, IF2642. 246, wait, what is it? 2642. 2642. And then the other one is BY453. So we've got BY453. Oh, not what I wanted. What do they call this? Is that right? I don't know if this is the right one, but if it is, they define it differently. So yeah, so it just looks like, if we look at the top here, see ICTS 6739, and then that's coming from that same spot. So yeah, it's just a matter of, for whatever reason, the 2642 is not as well defined as the BY453. Which I guess a little surprising for the FTDNA Y37. Although I know with the 37, they're not doing any SNP, or they're not doing much SNP testing, very minimal. And so sometimes with some of those, like with mine, when I did Y67, they had to do what they called the backbone SNP testing, which basically was like them saying, we're going to give you free SNP testing because we couldn't define things quite so well with this. But the other thing to consider too is the differences between whatever the chips test for that Ancestry is using versus MyHeritage. But yeah, kind of interesting. I am surprised about the Y37 not giving as a defined subclade as a MyHeritage upload to Family Tree DNA does. So, recently I did some research and I can confirm I am related to all the U.S. presidents of the last 25 years. Yeah, well, I have a whole video that talked about the whole population group connection thing and all that. And it was titled "Why All the Presidents Are Related," and it was part of a collaboration. Mine was "Why Are All the Presidents Related?" Mr. Beat, I think, did "How Are All the Presidents Related?" And then I think Matt Baker from Useful Charts just did "The Presidents Are All Related." I can't remember exactly. It was a fun. That was one of the videos I really like. I'm very happy with as a collab. Okay, Bear Var had a new match this week. We also share the same YDNA haplogroup. He was adopted at birth. He claims his father is X, and he matches testers in family 200 to 600 centimorgans, but their haplogroup is different. Yeah. I saw your comments to the others kind of answered my question that was going to go to you of, could it be, a subclade of the other one? But I guess from what you're saying is, okay, we had a new match this week. We also share the same Y DNA haplogroup. He was adopted at birth. He claims his father is X. Yeah, but whose haplogroup? I guess there's a little bit of confusion here because so had a new match this week. We also share the same Y DNA haplogroup. So you and this match share the same Y DNA haplogroup. He was adopted at birth. He claims his father's X, and he matches testers in the family, but their haplogroup, so the other testers in the family, are different, but they are the same. Yeah, I guess I think I'm missing a little too much. I think I feel like I understand what you're saying, but then I also feel like I'm not. But it's like, okay, well, all of these testers then would be related, or I assume you're saying they're related through the same paternal line, but then they have different haplogroups. So does that mean that they're different haplogroups to you too? But they should, yeah, okay. I'll keep an eye out for if you give an update. Could we be related? My grandmother had Sephardic Jewish DNA from the Netherlands. I mean, yeah, if you have Sephardic Jewish, I guess Sephardic Jewish DNA, was it just a reading, or is it like, known Sephardic ancestry? But if it is known Sephardic ancestry in the Netherlands, then yeah, we'll probably be related, and we'd probably be able to figure it out too. Her last name was Loeb. Well, let's take a look at Akavoth. See what we get for Loeb. To me, I think Loeb is much more of an Ashkenazi name, but Sephard or Dutch Jews had a mixture of Ashkenazi and Sephardic. Not all of them mixed, because mixing between Ashkenazi Jews and Sephardic Jews in Amsterdam and a lot of communities around the world where they were both living together, that didn't start to happen until really the 1800s. So much more recent. Granted, 1800s obviously is also a long time ago for everyone, but but what we can do is let's see. Ashkenazi marriages. So we've got a few here, not many. Oh, and you all probably can't even see that. One of the problems with this website is that instead of having it pop up in the same thing that you have, it pops up in a new window. Let's see. So, oh my gosh. Annoying. So just have it pop up in the same window. First chuppah. So Bronkhorst, Loeb family. So yeah. But it's possible there might be, you look at the Loeb family and then you might find Sephardic ancestry in there, especially, not uncommon in the Netherlands. Not uncommon at all. Okay. I think I'm falling behind, so I'm going to jump forward a bit. Okay, I see this jumping out. Ryan Thompson, question: can I trust genealogy that was written up pre-internet? We have a book that claims we were related to the first king of Norway, Harold Fairhair. My grandma visited a museum in Oslo in the 1970s. Honestly, you can trust the pre-internet stuff just as much as you can trust the stuff on the internet. As long, you can trust it as strongly as it has its sources. So, you'd have to review stuff. And, for a lot of people, that's the whole point of having sources, is so that, people don't have to necessarily go and do the research themselves. As genealogists, though, it's very hard to say that you're a genealogy researcher and then just take somebody at their word. But for the layman, they're going to read a book and say, oh, the book says this. And then they can tell people, well, this book says my family traces to this. But as a genealogist who has seen many a book written well pre-internet, I mean, stuff written in the 1800s and 1700s and 1600s even, that's wrong. I mean, humans are humans. We get stuff wrong. Genealogy, people get stuff wrong. Every professional I know pretty much has had some point in their career where they realized there was something they were researching where they were wrong at some point on it. And it just happens, and sometimes it's not even a matter of doing bad research themselves. Sometimes it's just a matter of the difficulty of the research. It's very common, even for professionals, to realize at some point, oh, wow, I've connected this record to this person, and that is definitely not that person. It's just someone with the same name or similar enough name that I got it wrong. And it happens. But when it comes to books like that, if you're, a true researcher, you're probably, you could say still, this book says this, but then there's the question of, well, how well do you trust it based on the sources it has? And so, see what sources it has, see if it does. I don't know if you have access to the book, but yeah. Okay. Here we get an update from Bear Var. Sorry, I meant that the person he claims is his father had great nephews through male lines who tested. Their Y-DNA haplogroup is different to him and mine, so X can't be his father, yet autosomal. I mean, to me, that then says that the autosomal connection, especially based on how strong you were saying it was, of what, 200 to 600 centimorgans, which is strong, especially if it's, one of the top matches is 600 centimorgans, then I would say, my guess is there's probably a connection through the maternal line, or there could also be something incorrect with these great nephews. They may claim through the male line, but then when you look at things, there may be a story, whether it's this, adopted person you're talking to or the nephews. Someone's got an NPE somewhere if the paper trail family tree indicates that guy should be his father. So maybe it's like the mother is how he's related to these great nephews, or maybe the guy that he thinks is his father, but then the great nephews have some sort of, they weren't truly the son, descending from the son of some guy. They were maybe the son of some woman, and then she was too young, sort of thing, or I don't know. It's always difficult when you have these sorts of cases where, especially, you have an adoptee where you don't know for sure everything, but then based on what you feel, things are matching up. But based on the amount of DNA you're sharing, though, something's going on. So, I mean, with these great nephews, I would try to look further into their tree and see if there was anyone better in their tree that you could test, as well as, more distant relatives in some of those lines, I guess. I don't know. It's a tough one, though. That's a tough one. So, they're related somehow. That through the autosomal. It's not it's not going to be a patrilineal connection between you and them. But obviously a patrilineal connection between you and the adoptee. So, yeah, I don't know. Retro Rob Casa, morning all. Yes, late again. I mean, it's got to be hard to say late again when you're, what is it, 8 a.m. where you are, or something like that in Australia. So, good morning. Good day to you, eh? And then we've got Next Lifetime. Hi, I'm late, LOL. Yeah, you made it. Just in time. Not sure how much longer I'll go. We'll see. So I feel like I say that all the time, and I go so much longer. Gina Herrera, errare humanus est. To err is human. Yeah. Errare. Aro, eras, errant. Aramus, eratus, errant. No. Aro, eras, eram. Aramus, eratus, eran. I don't know. Latin is a dead language. It's dead as it can be. It killed off all the Romans, and now it's killing me. Always need sources. Yes, 100%. 100%. Gina, or could it be the same haplogroup but presented under another name, different level? Yeah, I mean, that was something I thought at first, but Bear Var was responding to other people basically telling them the same thing of, look at that. So I'm guessing that Bear Var probably would know that. It sounds more like there's just no connection. Hadn't thought about the possibility that the MPE is on the great nephew's side. Thanks. We've already ruled out his mother's side as he knows who she is. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that would be my guess is there's an MPE somewhere else in there. And he knows who his mother is, and that's that puts a nail in that. And then knowing that there is a connection, but not through the Y-DNA. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the guy who he thinks is his father very well could be the father. But the other thing to consider too is, I guess this would be the MPE, but that these great nephews, whoever their ancestor is, that's the sibling of the father, that they are both males, but they only share a mom and they have different dads. And then knowing the autosomal DNA amount, look at those amounts with the idea of half cousins in mind, because obviously if, the father of the adoptee and then his uncle, who these great nephews descend from, well, those are, they're half, it's a half great uncle, really. Well, that should be somewhat noticeable in the DNA. Obviously, it might not be. You might be right on the cusp of where that, the overlap is, which sometimes happens. But yeah. Karma, I do know that according to 23andMe, my dad shares a maternal haplogroup with Benjamin Franklin. Yeah, I mean, one thing for sure is these sites learned quickly that with haplogroups and stuff, they could really play up the whole celebrity thing, because when it comes to haplogroups, I mean, you could share haplogroups with people, thousands of years back. So you could find out how anybody in the human population is related to anybody else. So as long as you can get enough celebrities where every single major haplogroup is covered with at least a couple, it's easy to do that. So, and especially with the ancient DNA and all that they have too nowadays. So, all right. Well, I think I'm going to call it there. It's been a fun stream. Kind of late today. I've been trying to think of some sort of special sort of stream to do, whether it's tracing a celebrity or something like that next week, or I don't know, we'll have to see. I have to think it's something good, but if anyone has ideas, be sure to join the Discord group, the Genie Vlogger Discord group. I don't know if I saw any of my mods or admins in here today, so not sure if they can share that invite link. But if not, at the very least, I think I have it in the description of the video and all of that. So be sure to join and do that. And funny enough, I do see Blake is here. Trace Eisenhower's ancestry next, since she did FDR and Truman. And if you don't know, technically I talk about Eisenhower's ancestry in one of the episodes that I did on Mr. Beat, because Mr. Beat and Eisenhower are cousins. And so I talk about exactly how they're related. And actually, you can even watch, there's an old live stream that Mr. Beat had recorded of him reacting to my videos. And that was one of the parts where he got I could tell he got super excited, because he's like, oh my gosh, this is not just the, hey, you're related this way. This is how we're related. This is the story. And it's really cool because it's right at the time where they're, coming to the US, and basically it's like a great uncle of both Eisenhower and Mr. Beat was the one that convinced the families to come to the US. So it's, kind of cool. But yeah, so definitely things like that, any ideas, go to Discord, put them in there. Other than that, I don't know, I'll just keep it simple. Thanks everyone for joining today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday, wonderful rest of your weekend. And I'm Jared Ross, the Genie Vlogger. I'll see you next week on the next stream.